Welcome back to another Synth Secrets. Today we're making pads from scratch in the style of Boards Canada, M83, Tycho, and lots of other similar artists. We're going to use Yui's Hive, as if it's not clear, we really enjoy using it. You can repeat these techniques in most good synths. Here's what we're making. We're going to set up the synth, tweak the sound, and show you how to use the XY controller. Then we're going to show you the basics of the foundation of the track that we have, and how this pad fits into it. Let's get into it. To begin with, open up a new MIDI track and put Hive onto it. Now on your new track, make a 4-bar MIDI loop and program a pattern. You can program any pattern you like, but we're going to program a very simple pattern in C minor. For 2 bars, we're going to use C, and then we're going to put F for 1 bar, and then D for the final bar. And it sounds like this. So let's get into making this sound like the pad we're trying to achieve. Let's begin with the sequencer. To turn it on, hit play. In its default state, it's on 8 steps, but we don't want 8 steps, we only want 3 steps. So you can change it there. Now you'll see that the sequence is only 3 steps long, and at the 3rd step it just goes back to the 1st. And we can also transpose the different steps. So for 2nd step, we're going to turn it to 17, and for the 3rd step, we're going to turn it to 7. Now we don't like that B flat that's being played. That one. So what we can do is we can use these keys here to tell Hive to only play keys that we're selecting. So if we select, let's say, these keys, it immediately sounds a lot nicer to us. For us, that sounds like just a ticket. So we're going to use that. Now let's tweak the actual sound itself. Head to Oscillator 1 and change the unison down to 12. You can hear the difference. Now let's dial in a D tune. Around 10 o'clock should do it. And it already gives us that euphoric sound. But we also want to wash this out like any good pad. So let's head to the effects section, click on Reverb. It's already quite a bit of reverb, but we want more. So let's drive the mix all the way as far as it can go. And let's drive the decay as well. But don't go all the way to 100. If you go all the way to 100, and the settings at the top you can see, if you go all the way to the 100, it won't stop. So we only want to go to around 90, which is still a lot. Let's dial in loads of width, bit of tone, less damp. I think halfway is good. So that's really washed out, which is exactly what we want. The next thing we want to do is add in another oscillator. So click here to assign it. You can hear the sound change. What you're hearing here is 2 sawtooths. Sawtooth on Oscillator 1 and sawtooth on Oscillator 2. Let's hit Oscillator 2 and put it onto solo. What we want to do is change the waveform from sawtooth to sine. Gives us that nice angelic vibe. And actually you can hear the sort of wavy sound in the background. Let's try and you get it with tone. You might have to have good headphones or good monitors to hear that. Now let's take it off solo again. They're sounding nice together. But let's work with the filter. So let's pull this down. Now we've lost it. But we can use the modulation to bring it back. So let's assign the modulation to the filter 1 cutoff and then dial it in by clicking on the orange. you can also control the orange here, which is the amount that the modulator will move. Now let's increase the release on the modulation. Okay, that's in a good spot. At this point, you could mess around with the filter as well. You could change it to different types of filter settings. This one's not such a steep curve, so it lets through a few more high frequencies. That one's got an interesting sound. But for the purposes of this, we know we want the low pass 24. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the XY controller in order to add some movement to our sound. The XY controller can often be found on a lot of synths, and it kind of acts like a joystick where you can independently and simultaneously control several parameters at once. In this case, its default setting has got the volume 1 and the volume 2, and we're going to keep that for the time being, but we're going to turn off the sub volume and the sub volume underneath. We don't want to use those for the time being. But we're also going to hard pan this one and hard pan that one. That means that when we move this around the controller pad, it will have a full volume swell between the two oscillators. To go one step further, we're going to add the filter cutoff to the Y controller. So let's dial that in here, and let's dial in a pretty generous amount. So it sounds the same for now, but if you watch this, now all you're hearing is oscillator 2. It's the full volume. This side. And you can go backwards. Worth bearing in mind that you can assign the automation to a MIDI keyboard parameter if you wanted to have a more tactile feel. I'm just using a mouse for the time being. So now that we have our synth more or less where we want it, let's put it in the middle for the time being, and let's look at the rest of the song. Let's first duplicate it across the length of our song. Intro. And let's hit play, and we'll go through the bits one at a time. So let's begin at the top. We've got these drum parts. We just used a loop for the purpose of this tutorial. We've got Saturn on there. Just a little bit of saturation with a little bit of flutter. We've got Timeless by FabFilter. This While My Weeps guitar gently. It's a bit of a mouthful if you're used to saying something else. It's got a bit of reverb. It's got a bit of... It just adds a bit of magic in there. We've got Beat Repeat, which is coming on and off across the duration of the loop. You can see it coming on and off here. And then we've got some EQ. Nothing too much, but it's just a cool little loop that reminded us of the 90s. Then we've got a very simple bass line coming from Pigments. Now it's an ambient track, so it would be a miss if we didn't have an ambience. The ambience. Distant Frogs. All we did there is just turn the volume down. We've got an SFX sample, which is a bit nondescript. It's coming up. Very Boards of Canada inspired. You can hear it again. And on that one, we've got EQ, hiss, another EQ, reverb, and a bit crusher. And then we've got a random voice. So that's that out there. Here again. Just coming in and out. No delay and no echo. We want it to come in and out quite suddenly. And then we've got our new Hive pad. All that's left to do is we want to automate the XY controller at different points of the song. So make sure you configured it, and it will go green, then take it off configure, and from there you just need to hit record and record it in as you go. Let's go for it. And let's go soft in the verse. So now all you're hearing is the oscillator 2, which is that sine wave. What's quite fun is sudden jumps. That worked nicely with the beat repeat on the drums. Let's get big at the drop. Let's go round. And that's more or less all there is to it. Let's pause it for a second. The last thing we did is we've added vinyl onto the master track. That might be controversial. And we've only put a very small amount on. We just want to give it that sound. Turn it up. We don't want much. And we added a gate just so that when it goes under minus 42 decibels, it will turn itself off. And then you don't get that persistent crackle while you're trying to work on your project. If you like the Synth Secrets, please leave a comment below about another track or something you'd like us to cover. We'll do our very best, or you can get in touch on the Tap Magazine. Thanks for watching. See you next time.